Welcome to this October 4th regular Board of Education meeting. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I got very confused with two flags. I went with that.
Okay, thank you.
Everybody look at that way.
Roll call of trustees. All of my fellow board members are here. Mrs. Joker is joining us via OWL. For the good of the order board discussion, does anyone have any comments? Rachel?
Yeah,
You're
I figured that one out. It's the owl told me. I just wanted to thank the fire department and VCSF for the community event that they put on and the family biking group. It was just wonderful to see so many people turning out and doing things outside. And it looked like it was so needed to have that time to do it, and so great to support wonderful things. Thank you to everyone involved in that.
Yeah. And also all the work that people, especially the custodians during homecoming. That's a lot of work, a lot of people here. And I mean, between Friday night football game, there's a lot of people in and out. So thanks to all the work everybody put into making that a good community success. Okay, opportunity for the public to be heard. We have, we will have open comments in a minute. We had one email that from a community member who could not attend. I am just reading his comments for your information, my fellow board members' information. Thank you for taking my comments. My name is Vinnie Camisso. I am a resident in Voorheesville and a father to a kindergarten student in the district. With 4 weeks into the school year, I want to share with you the comments my son has been saying to me. Dad, when can we take off our masks? I don't like wearing them anymore. And Dad, my brain hurts. I have to remind him that it is only temporary, because as I see it, this cannot be forever. And I'm hopeful that those who control the levers of power come to their senses or will be forced to. Now, I expressed back in August that I had concerns with children, especially the young ones, wearing a mask for several hours a day. I know they get a mask break and they have plenty of opportunities to go outside. But my question is, when are we going to realize how ineffective masks are on children? When are we going to stop the fear plaguing our little kids? He's just a little kid. He should not have to worry about if his mask is fitting properly or if there's a virus that is going to get him. I often wonder, when you sit up there addressing issues of safety and well-being, what mental toll this is having on our kids. What are you doing as board members to address those specifically? I find this quote to be on point with today's times. Sanity, intellectual honesty, critical thinking, and rationality are dead. The COVID response killed these qualities and purposely discouraged and despairingly labeled anyone who still engages with them. I encourage all of you to continue to have a real open discussion about the mental impact this is having and will continue to have on students at BES. Thank you for your time and service to this community. And again, I pray that you find the courage to do what is not only right, but what's best for all students and parents. Regards, Vinnie Camisso. Okay, so if anyone else would like to make a public comment, we would be happy to hear from you, and you can step up to the podium and give us your name and any comments you may have. Okay, well, then we'll move on to the rest of our meeting. And the auditor report? Were you going to get
Sure.
that? Or
Yeah,
did
sure.
I thought you
You
were
want me to
supposed
do
to
it
get it.
now? I think we let
We
them
sent it.
know.
Okay, then we'll wait till audit committee,
Yeah, I
okay?
can
Is
do
that
it
fine?
during-
Okay,
Sure.
perfect. Thank you, RG. Okay, superintendent report, Mr. McQuinn?
All right, I have a few items, so bear with me. I think one is not on the agenda, and I do want to bring this up. And I swear this is not kissing up. I want to say that even before I begin. School board members take on more and more important citizen responsibilities. They oversee the education of the community of our youth. Board of Education guide their local school systems, ensure public schools are flexible and responsive to the needs of the community. School boards are comprised of volunteers, most of whom do not receive any compensation for their services. None of you do. And the reason why I'm saying these things is because right now, October is Board Appreciation Month. Next week is Board Appreciation Week through NISBA. And I wanted to thank you on behalf of the school community and Voorheesville community for all that you do. It's an unthankful job sometimes. I know all the time and hours that you put in because the majority of you work with me on this. And I did get you a small gift. Thanks. Rachel, sorry, it has to get to you. And it's not much, but it's just a token of appreciation for all the work that you guys do.
Very nice.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank.
You're welcome.
That's so kind. Thank you.
This is Rachel's.
Yep.
So Rachel, I got one for you too. And if you look at the pen, it does say Board of Education on it. So.
Wow.
Wow, spiffy.
All right, so pre-K update, I want to get into that. I haven't spoke to Kate Novitsky today. Friday was our first kind of kickoff day. It was October 1st. It was the deadline for when we started. They were off and running. The Monday night prior, they had an open house. The majority of the families and communities who are joining our pre-K were there. I was able to go and meet a lot of our families. Very grateful community members that were able to offer a fully funded pre-K program within the district. So, and a special thanks to our community-based organizations, Serendipity. Some districts are struggling to find community-based organizations. There's no room inside buildings. I mean, everyone's struggling. The funds that were there are not enough to be able to support inside the building. So the CBO is really the only logical way for school districts to do the pre-K without any more means added onto your general fund. So I really do appreciate the cooperation we have with them and the opportunity for 18 of our students to be a part of our pre-K program. So it's pretty exciting. It's the first year Voorheesville's ever had one. And I'm hoping it's an successful year and we can continue this partnership. Any questions on the pre-K? All right. Next one is surveillance, diagnostic testing, quarantine, tutoring, kind of just basically update. So each week, the superintendents of the capital area meet with Dr. Whalen. So all Albany County meet with Dr. Whalen, Liz Lewis, and we go over all the expectations and things that are happening for Albany County. One thing Dr. Whalen stated was that, it's kind of important. There's been no significant evidence stating that there's any spread of COVID within schools. So that shows that the mitigation strategies that are happening within schools are working. You're seeing outbreaks, you're seeing cases, you're seeing quarantines, and you're seeing large scale quarantines in Albany County. And I will explain that in a moment, but you're not seeing spread within the buildings. And that's super, really important to show that. Yeah, you do have maybe an idea in elementary school, and you may have one positive or two positives here, and you may have kids on quarantine, but there's not significant spread. So showing the things that we put in place are working. What you're seeing, though, is you are seeing quarantines happen, and the large quarantines, as I already stated in the very beginning of this, will be on buses. And as you saw by the algorithm that is there, there's a large swath of kids that if you're a positive on the bus, you'll get hit. And everywhere it's anywhere between 8 to 16 students per case on the bus. So, and that's what we're seeing on average. For us, we do not have our buses packed up as other districts. Some districts are seeing anywhere between 20 and 25. And again, you have to remember, it's a 2-day stretch. So if you're positive, if someone goes home and they're sick on Wednesday night and they show symptoms on Wednesday, and then they get tested and on Friday they're positive, we quarantine Tuesday and Monday is what we give the list to Albany County Department of Health for. So it's 2 days back from the sign of symptoms. So if you have a child that rode the bus Monday morning, but a different one rode the bus Monday afternoon because they're going to different childcare or different places, you're actually hitting all those students. So the quarantine isn't just going to be maybe 10 kids, it could be 14 or 15 depending on how those buses run. So that's where we're seeing the majority of it. Other than that, in classrooms, we're not seeing large quarantines because of how it's set up within the 6 feet and 3 feet radius. So they're within that time frame of the mitigation. So when we are seeing it, we're roughing out anywhere between 15 to 25 to 30 kids per week right now on quarantine. The quarantine tutoring or instructional program that we have going on, we do have a staff member that was just recently hired, Carrie Martinez, as our point forward, and then she does point 6. She is taking over that. There is going to be a point in time where she cannot do all of those quarantines. Our elementary school teachers, they will get first right of refusal. So the teacher who has the child, after Carrie does it first, because we do want to maximize her and her schedules. After that, we then will ask the teachers if they want to be able to take that on. And you did see we increased that rate just recently to be able to make sure that teachers are getting compensated and want to do the work. Because it is a lot, right? They're putting in more time and more time put into planning and expectations for the kids. Our quarantine instructional time is seeming to work right now. We're seeing a 24-hour kind of layover. And here's what I want to explain. If we find out a child is positive on Monday, well, the parent can't, and then we quarantine and do all those things. It takes about 1.5 hours to 2 hours for us to do a quarantine tracking. So it takes a while. We'll notify the family on Monday. On Tuesday, it has to be a layover day. We have to have time to get the teachers in line, get the work done to the teachers. So it's usually 24 hours, one business day, in order for us to start our quarantine instructional program. Because we can't notify families, expect the teachers to drop everything they're doing, put it up online, then get it to the tutors right away. It takes a business day to get us up and running with that model. And then after that, we're up and running, giving our tutoring. Any questions on that?
I got a question.
Yes, Tim.
I show my naivete.
Yeah.
So a quarantine exists. You have 25 kids in quarantine.
Yep.
That's across multiple classes or one class?
So it depends, right? So that's why I said we were averaging out, because we could have, let's say we have 2 or 3 positives, right, within the district. Or let's say we have a positive outside of the district, but 3 kids are quarantined because of that. It all depends. So it could be 4 kids in grade 3 and 7, 7 kids in grade 10 and 12. It really is all dependent. We could have one class fully quarantined 1 week, and one class we could have 7 kids from grades 2 to 5 quarantined. It really is dependent on just how it rolls out.
So that's what I'm getting at. So you have a spread of kids who are at different grade levels.
Yep.
With different educational needs.
Correct.
And right now you have one teacher who's assigned to this
3 periods a day.
3 periods a day. You have tutors.
Well, they're the instructional person who does it. And then if that teacher can't meet those needs, then we go to the teachers. And we know that's going to happen because it does get a little loaded very quickly.
So this isn't one-on-one though. You can have 7 kids online. Is that what's happening?
It depends.
In class.
It depends. If they're in the same class,
Yeah.
let's say it's me, Rob, you, and RG, and we're all in the same class today, we could then be doing an online group together.
Okay.
Or it could be, I'm the only 5th grader on the bus that was quarantined.
Right.
Rob's the only 7th grader who on the bus was quarantined.
Right.
We may be having just one-on-one, 20-minute check-ins, and then the teacher comes back again and does another 20-minute check-in. It really is dependent and it can change based on the need.
Is there a standard amount of time that is quarantined?
Yep, it's, as we talked about before, we're using the medical tutoring as so 1 hour for elementary and up to 2 hours for high school. Because that's what we give if a child is out on medical tutoring, that's exactly what we would offer. So we're doing the same thing, but we're trying to do it within the school day. So that, a little bit before, a little bit after, so we have them during that instructional time frame.
And how long does a child have to quarantine?
It depends on, sometimes it could be 3 days, sometimes it could be 10 days. Max is 10. Albany County Department of Health is quarantining at 14 days. I think that's really important for people to still understand, because even though the quarantine's done, the incubation period is 14, so they still want people to watch for symptoms after that point. But a child could be quarantined. I've had kids where we find out about quarantines and after it goes to the report that we may be only given a contact list for 3 days to families. And other times we catch it right at the very beginning and we're giving contact lists to Albany County Department of Health for 9 days.
How's that determined?
Albany County Department of Health.
And they'll say 3 days?
Yep. We're dependent on when the child was symptomatic or the individual was symptomatic. They'll come back and say they were symptomatic on this day, anybody who was exposed on this day, and say we're finding out 6 days later. I mean, that's what we work from. So it can change and fluctuate. We work with our school liaisons. There's 3 school liaisons for Albany County Department of Health that we work with. And we work with epidemiology and the contact tracers to really kind of work through it.
I learned a lot. Sorry I asked.
It's all right. No, it was very quick.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and trust me, I've learned a lot over the past year and a half on this as well.
How will the energy? A lot. So, drag up.
Let me, I said this today, I'm trying to find the best way to say this. We're putting a lot of energy into COVID, and we're putting a lot of energy to keep kids safe and doing the contact tracing and doing these things. That same amount of energy, if we could put in other places, we would be making leaps and bounds of changes. But we're here now. This is where we are, and this is what we're focused on. And we're gonna continue to do what we're doing, and and move forward, but, we're waiting to see when the next thing comes, and when we can put our efforts into something different for the benefit of our school community. But I don't have a good answer, Jim. It's a lot.
It's, I think about that a lot. It's amazing.
Moving on with that, surveillance and
Oh, Frank, can I ask you a question?
absolutely.
Hi. If a kid isn't quarantined, but they're just waiting for their COVID test results, it can be 2 or 3 days. Sometimes the labs are pretty backed up. Is the instructional support available for those kids as well?
We do not have it. It's only for mandatory quarantine. But, Rachel, you lead me right to my next thing. So the district right now is going to be rolling out its surveillance and diagnostic testing in for our school community. We are one of the first in Albany County to really start rolling this out. We're pretty excited about it. So we're starting with our staff. Surveillance is non-symptomatic students, non-symptomatic adults. This is part of the testing requirement for New York State with staff as well. So they're going to be tested weekly. We have roughly right now about 200 students who have signed up for surveillance testing. I'm hoping I can get more. I'd like a better swath of our society. 20% of those students will be tested weekly until all those students are exhausted. That's great for surveillance. That gives us an idea of the COVID spread in the building that we don't know about. I'd love to get more students involved in this, but right now this is what we have. Hopefully as the program starts going and people see how easy it is, I think we'll get more. The thing that we're very excited about, and I think Albany County Department of Health and Dr. Whalen, when I explained this to her, was really excited about this program. We're going to roll out diagnostic testing. This is the one right now, I'll be honest with you, one of my children's out. The doctor said they had 60 phone calls before 10 o'clock for testing. The LabCorp is behind 2 to 5 days right now to be able to get tests back. We're gonna hopefully solve that situation by using Quadrant Biosciences. We're offering diagnostic testing to our school community. Again, not finalized, we gotta roll it out. You gotta remember, I just hired staff last week for this, but here's the nuts and bolts of it. If your child is going home sick, we're gonna ask permission to swab your child right then and there. So we'll do the swab for you. You won't have to send your child out anywhere. We're gonna take that, send it off to Quadrant. They're gonna come back to us within 24 to 48 hours. We'll at least know. It doesn't get pooled. It's an individual sample. So within 24 to 48 hours, we'll hopefully have the result back for the child or staff member who was symptomatic. If you get sick at home, because let's be honest, kids don't always get sick during the school day. Adults don't always get sick during the school day. So let's say it's 7 o'clock on Monday, you got fever, head cold, all the things start happening. Tuesday morning, call the nurse, they're gonna set it up at the high school, you're gonna drive through, there's a specific location. Nurse will come out, hand you and your child a swab, you'll do it right in the car, they'll bag it, tag it, send it off. So we're gonna do drive-through testing here on district. So the issue, Rachel, that they're having in the bigger community, we're hopefully gonna solve here. Dr. Whalen's pretty excited that we're able to offer a program like this, and I have to actually report back next week on how it actually is working. You had your hand raised.
Yes, I was curious because I noticed the Quadrant, which I know is not under the purview of the district, asks questions about things like race and such, and I'm wondering if there's a way to not have to answer those questions.
I don't know that answer because that goes right through Albany County and Quadrant Biosciences, so that's not within our purview.
Yeah, it would be something that is weird to me.
They collect all of that data regardless for any COVID testing anywhere that you go. It's demographic data that at a minimum the state wants that is collecting.
Maybe.
So that's not us or them.
Yeah, it's a lab.
Yeah, it's a lab that does.
The other
But-
thing is that having spent hundreds of dollars getting my kids tested recently, or my husband, over the past month or two, I very much appreciate that the school will be able to support that.
We're very excited that we can offer something here where hopefully we'll streamline it and get kids back in quickly. One thing that has been asked, and I do have to clarify it for individuals, if a child is a contact or an adult of a contact of an individual and we give their name to the Albany County Department of Health for contact tracing, people have asked if they can test out of it. We have asked Dr. Whalen that answer. The answer is no. You may not test out of it. You have to wait the full 10 days. Even if you get a test on day 9 and you're completely fine and you want to come back day 10, the answer is no. You have to go through the full quarantine as per Albany County Department of Health.
You mean if you're exposed?
If you're
That's-
exposed,
yeah,
yes.
Close contact of a confirmed positive.
Yes, close contact of a confirmed positive.
A mandatory
If your name is on
quarantine,
that, you are. Yeah.
Unvaccinated.
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 Well, if you're symptomatic, that's a whole
But
different.
sure,
yeah.
sure.
So, but people have asked that question multiple times, and I have to say, no, you can't if you're a contact of a close positive.
What's the timeline for the symptomatic?
So you're asking
I am.
great questions tonight. So again, I hate to say this, but our staff are gonna be our guinea pigs because we have to do this. And I don't want to do it at a grand scale and have it blow up, right? We want it to roll out and we want it to be right. So we're starting with staff tomorrow. We're hoping we can start doing, then tomorrow afternoon, we have a nurses meeting to be able to discuss diagnostic. On Thursday, we're probably gonna try doing a couple students for surveillance and staffing, and then we're hoping we can even get diagnostic maybe started Thursday and or Friday. The difference is our part-time nurse works Tuesday and Thursday, so we always have someone on. Our nurses also have to then balance, swabbing a child as they leave, putting them in an isolation area. It gets really complicated, and we just want to make sure when we do this, we do it right. Our goal is going to be next Monday, we're up and running with our diagnostics. Might not be pretty, might not be perfect, but that's our goal.
It's gonna help keep so many kids
Yeah,
in classrooms if it works out.
I
So,
I
and
already
save a
have,
lot of money for a lot of
Yeah,
families. so
I
thank you.
have 2 children out right now.
Mhm.
And let's not forget what I released today is what Albany County Department of Health kind of landed on us last week, is that they're recommending asymptomatic siblings of unvaccinated students, right? So an unvaccinated child, they should be excluded from school, which is good, and it can solve a lot of issues. But that means if, my child is sick, then my other child at home is not, has to be excluded as well. Getting that test and getting it back quickly is really gonna help a lot. Rachel?
This is a reversion or a reverse from the previous, where I remember how excited you were when kids were allowed to go to school, and now that's returned to the original. Yes?
The rates have been going up. You've seen what I send out each week. There is at least one every other day that I'm releasing as a positive within the district. The rates are going up. And Dr. Whalen has said it's, as we get colder and we go inside, you're gonna see rates go up more if mitigation strategies aren't followed and we don't put on more restrictions. So, this is just part of that kind of plan right at the moment to see what's happening.
Frank, you just sent out an FAQ
Yep.
this afternoon
Yep.
on some of this stuff. One of the sections was around like when to exclude from school for a symptom for COVID testing. I think one answer pointed to CDC symptoms, but there was another one that said one of these symptoms or 2 of these. Like what is it? Like,
So here's what happens.
Here's
Here's what it is. We have to release every child who's out.
Right.
To Albany County Department of Health. If they have one of those symptoms from column A, we go click.
Mhm.
If they have one of the symptoms from column B, click. They then go to a different kind of ratio. So if it's one from column A, which is like loss of taste, like the COVID, like these are the big ones for COVID, they've already put them on where if you don't get a test result in 2 days, they're gonna call you up, probably presume you positive and quarantine you and your family and everyone else. So that is through Albany County Department of Health. Any one of those is going to qualify as a symptom. Those 2 columns for us report back to Albany County, and then they use that for other contact tracing.
But
It gets very confusing.
So for requiring, let's use me as an example. If my daughter has just a runny nose tomorrow, which is under the 2 symptoms needed for the other thing.
Yeah.
If it's just a runny nose, she still needs a COVID test.
She
for
still
us.
needs, because that's what they're actually seeing. A lot of our children are seeing runny nose, sore throat, maybe a slight headache, and that's coming up as COVID positive.
But we also have to remember what season this is
Oh,
now.
it's flu
Strep-
season, it's all-
strep- we
Yeah.
at work,
Thank you, Cindy.
For my kids,
Well,
about
that's
half the
like a
time. we
Oh,
don't
dangerous-
do
it
it.
is, and then
So-
that's the problem is, but we
Right.
have to, as Dr. Whalen said, and we brought this up, she said, yes, it can be all these multiple things, but the number one thing we first have to rule out is COVID, and then we can address the other things.
right, but I just want to make sure that we
Yep.
clearly understand that this is a high virus season anyway, strep throat, flu.
Yep.
Lots of Coxsackie virus going around.
Lots,
right now,
there's so much stuff going around and
Allergies.
kids still can be sick.
Yeah.
Not everybody has.
And
COVID.
adults.
And adults, right. Okay,
All right,
thank
so
you.
I have one more thing, really quick, sorry, but no, just one more last thing, is, I want to talk a little bit about the equity work that we're doing. I don't publicize this a lot, but I do want to talk about the fact that it is work that we're doing within the district. We started the work last year with Progression Partners. We had a group of staff members who went through a full training. They are now on the next phase to be able to be the leadership within their buildings of that phase. We had our staff trained at the beginning of the year and just building capacity quickly. And now the next step is that we're having equity walks in October, Progression Partners coming in, and they're actually evaluating a few different things. They're going to look and focus on the culture and climate that promotes learning in each building. They're going to look at shared vision. Do we have a shared vision? Does our vision include stated commitment to a diverse culture and climate that promotes learning? Is the vision well known and communicated? Does the school have established culture of acceptance? Does the school establish a culture for learning that communicates high expectations to staff, students, and families? Does the school promote a culture of learning that creates opportunities and access and provides supports for all students to exceed given expectations? Does it create opportunities to promote and enhance student learning? And does the school display cultural sensitivity for the backgrounds of its staff, students, and families? And they're going to be looking at a very comprehensive approach of the different, our schedules, our policies, basically our staffing. They're going to be really digging in deep to what we have here. And then they're also going to be walking around the building and also speaking to staff members. So I'm really interested in what that is going to look like. They're then going to report back to the equity group that did all the work last year, because that equity group and those teachers that are representative of all of our buildings, they're going to be doing a large amount of that work and then working back with our professional development team, figuring out where the rest of this training fits for the remainder of the year. So we're moving forward, and we're really excited about some of the work that's being done, but that's just that in a nutshell. Very quick overview.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so moving on to 3.3, discussion item, facility use. Last meeting, we did have a discussion specifically at the end of the meeting on CYO, but we need to have a discussion on facility use in general, not just specific to one group using our facilities.
Let me go.
Go.
Okay. So after the presentation last week and after the discussion, I said I was going to speak with other districts and find out what they were doing. I spoke to many other districts. I shared with the board and my notes those districts. The majority of school districts in the capital area, and this was one that I'm going to walk back a little bit from where my original conversation was when I suggested this earlier. They're not allowing indoor use by outside organizations. They're not allowing indoor use during high or substantial transmission rates. So then I started really looking at that and what that means for the district. And I understand it. I've discussed that with other individuals. That means that they're not allowing, for us, it would be, we wouldn't allow our Linda Swim program. We wouldn't allow our booster clubs to be able to have their vendor fair for Dollars for Scholars. It is going to hinder things, but they were talking about this in Albany County was discussion, is you can control what you have authority in your building. Your things for your students and staff that are already part of your school day, you can create structures. But if you're allowing your building to be open and you're offering other programs, you're then making that net wider. And every school I spoke to is closed down that ability. Given the fact of what we've seen lately and the quarantines that we're seeing and the spreads that we're seeing, I am going to recommend to the board, and again, this is different than what I said before, and this is with a heavy heart, because you know how I feel about making sure we do as much things as possible. I would recommend that we do not allow indoor use by any organization outside of our school. And then I'm also going to recommend that I have to look at our policies and indoor use and figure out how I can limit that as well to make sure that we're not exceeding the amount of people within the building at different times. And making sure we adhere to what's supposed to be. So if we have a concert, making sure that concert is, maybe 2 parents per child, or making sure we're not exceeding a large amount of people within our facilities. We're breaking those concerts up. But I think we really have to look at that in a different way, especially now with our transmission rates and everything we're seeing. That would be my recommendation. It is different than what I said at the beginning of the year, but I did say it would possibly change given the facts of what we're seeing. So now it's up to discussion, but that's kind of what I'm looking at and what my recommendation would be.
I have one super quick question. Is the delineator there outside groups versus us, or
I think
non-school related activities versus school related activities?
I think the delineator for me would be, except for the state troopers that would utilize our swim, anything that is not affiliated with the school. Meaning, and I'm not going to say Dollars for Scholars, it's not affiliated with the school because it's not a school program. So anything that, our Learn to Swim program is kind of affiliated, but we're
Yeah, that was
also,
homework.
but we're
But it's
going to
not.
Gilliland, we're going to Bethlehem, we're bringing kids in at all different times. My recommendation is school-sponsored activities that would go with inside our co-curricular. So our curriculum and or our athletics would be where I would house it. Other than that, my recommendation would not be able to open the buildings at this time.
So my question was mostly going to be around continuing ed, which we run, but, so that would probably
I
be
say that
no
would
as well.
fit right into it as well. If we're going to, if the recommendation is not going to do it, it's going to have to be across the board.
When you say it would fit into it, what do you mean? Explain that.
What do you mean fit into it? I'm sorry.
Well, you just said that.
You
He
couldn't-
asked about, he asked about
Yeah.
continuing ed, and you said, I think that would fit into it as
That would
well.
fit into outside.
Right, so so it's really more, like, say,
So you wouldn't
outside of
allow it.
school activity
Correct.
versus,
Yeah.
versus something that we can, 'cause
Yes.
that is our program, but it's not a school related.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
School-related programming is directly
Yeah, things like concerts,
coincides with instruction
running
within
the
the day or athletics.
plays,
Yep,
athletics that we run.
correct.
So,
Sorry to drop that bomb.
No,
but
so something like that, like a play, what Rob just said, that gathers lots and lots of people, are
I
you
have
thinking
to-
you'd limit?
I have to rethink this and look at it and have conversations. I have not had any conversations with anyone at this point in time because of the fact that I wanted to have it here. So
Yep.
I'm dropping that bombshell. Yes, I'm going to have to speak to the directors depending on how this conversation goes. Yes, there's going to be some hard conversations that come out of this. But I have to look at other districts and what they're doing to keep their community safe, what their numbers currently look like and how they're doing it. Talk to Albany County Department of Health and their recommendations. I just have to look at it across the board in a bigger scope.
So if we switch to a different zone, would you,
So school districts that I've all talked to are doing substantial and high. They're not allowing any indoor use.
Okay.
Moderate and low, they are allowing indoor use.
so you would,
And that would be my
Recommend.
recommendation.
Like-
And I would almost recommend if we went to substantial is to reevaluate it as well. But
Yeah, I did some research today, just trying to figure out what other CYO
Yeah.
or basketball programs were doing. Bethlehem had something up about during high transmission, no outside use. Guilderland, which I think you had flagged as no use
Yeah.
during substantial or high. At least according to the website for one of their basketball programs, allowed tryouts 2 weekends ago. I don't know if anyone actually went or if they held it, but on their website, it looks like they did. So it's hard to get a sense of what districts are actually doing.
yeah. Well, what I got,
Youth
yeah,
basketball
the recommendations I got back were
Outside.
directly from the
Yep.
superintendents. So the conversation I had with the superintendent said, this is what we're doing. So when I
Right.
said, they flagged no, the superintendent of that school district said, no, we're not allowing this. So that's, I'm going by
Yeah,
that.
no, I'm
recommendation.
not saying that's not where you're.
No, I know,
told.
I know, yeah, I
So
understand.
Frank, you're kind of, it sounds like you're making two recommendations. One is, for the outside use, you would limit that substantially.
Yep.
You'd ban it.
Yep.
And then for things that are co-curricular, extracurricular with our students in mind, you'd limit attendance.
We'd have to evaluate it and have a conversation with those advisors and the people in charge of it to see if we're going to make sure that it's a safe environment for our community.
As a case-by-case basis.
I can't guarantee it right now because I haven't done any of the work on it. So I don't know exactly what's going to be, and I can say, well, I'm going to make a blanket statement on staff, on what school stuff would look like right now. So it really would have to be evaluated case by case.
How did we have that written in the layered mitigation plan?
It was very vague.
Yeah,
Very-
I
Very
figured-
vague, for a
and then-
reason, because I wanted to
Right.
keep it open. So offer every opportunity that we
In
can.
question two, like, what have we been doing right now? I mean, there's indoor, like volleyball's an indoor sport, right? What have we been?
We have not been
we've
limiting
limiting anything?
Right, but we haven't had, since homecoming, we haven't had a large amount of people here,
Mhm.
especially indoors. And at this point, this is the perfect opportunity to, with the transmission rate, with the rates as they are, and the amount of positives that we're seeing each day, now's the time to start really looking at those things.
But you don't yet have a specific recommendation as far as how you would limit.
No, because that's something that I would do internally, as,
Right.
that's more of an internal type of thing.
Yeah.
As we see, and that's really not a substantial change, to it. The substantial change would be the indoor,
Right.
the complete banning. That's a substantial change.
Right, so is that the only one we're really considering right now?
Yeah, because the other one is really.
Okay, so the other one, you don't need us, you're good.
No,
So, okay. cool.
And
How many
I think you're right,
organizations-
the timing is,
Yeah.
because even our indoor sports that draw a lot of spectators start.
Yep.
Coming up too.
they're
so.
coming up as well.
Frank, when you talk about outside groups, how many groups are we talking about?
Well, CYO utilizes our indoor facilities. We did have dance last year, and I know dance would want to come back, different dance organizations, that would change. Dollar for Scholars, Learn to Swim, continuing education.
New Scotland Soccer.
And it's got a
They do the inside as well,
So
so,
in like February, right?
Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, we are impacting a lot, a large amount.
Have you had any conversations with any of them?
First conversation I'm having is with the board. Because if the board says yes, then I go through and do, the recommendation. If the board has a conversation about it, then I change it, but this is where it starts.
I mean, it stinks, but at least it's a high degree of clarity, which is good.
Hmm.
So, I'm on board with your recommendation.
So just to be clear, Frank, so everyone specifically knows, you're recommending at this time, high transmission, for the safety of our children and staff, that we do not hold any outdoor, we're not specific one, any outside use of facilities,
Indoor facility,
indoor facilities.
except for, and I will be clear, except for the state troopers utilize our pool for swim. It's completely isolated, and they're a level 1 group use, and they've done this forever for utilizing our facilities outside for training purposes.
Okay, and you're ready to recommend that. However, you'd like more time to look internally at like numbers.
The rest of that,
expected-
I would just do, because it says to be determined and to be evaluated on the plan. So really, that's what that means for me.
Okay,
So I can do that within the facilities and within the building itself.
okay.
It's really the indoor banding is really what I want to have a conversation with.
So what happens to programs that we would have hosted in the past that we would not host under this recommendation? Where do they go? Do they just disband? Do they just not have a season? What happens?
So, CYO has use of the Peter Young Center in Altamont. New Scotland Soccer Club also has used the Peter Young Center. It's not a great facility, but it can be used by groups like that. Some of the continuing ed programs, I don't know what they would do. Swim is not gonna have another option.
They don't.
And the
So a lot of these programs will fall apart or they will only host certain levels for certain activities.
And things like the dance recitals, they've used like Dallas Theater, they've used different theaters in the area too.
Boy Scouts
And-
uses the and
Yeah.
things over the.
Can continuing ed use stuff, online platforms like Zoom and Google Meets though?
Because they want to.
Huh?
Yep.
Not
So
for
they're-
basketball.
Basketball.
Yeah,
Not work for basketball, I don't think.
continuing ed.
Reminder, last year, did we have any indoor facilities? We
nothing
didn't,
in
right?
last
So this is no different than last year, really.
Yeah, but I'll say last year was pretty terrible. In terms of, kids being able to do things. So I'll just say, I'm not gonna vote on this because I'm on New Scotland Soccer Club's board and CYO board, and I certainly, there is no conflict for me, but I can see how there might be an appearance. So I'm not gonna vote, but I will say that I think we can do these activities safely. And, you said earlier, Frank, the protocols we have in place are working. I think they have worked. I would hope they'll continue to work, and combined with, testing and other mitigations that we could put in place, I would hope we could host these activities safely, but I will not be voting.
The people who are involved in these outside activities, are they typically residents or students of Voorheesville?
Yes.
Well, the home teams are, but the people they play against that come here are from all different counties, all over the place, so they're not just Albany County.
And our Learn to Swim program is not, it's Voorheesville.
Yeah, it pulls in a bunch of,
Going, it
Bunch
pulls
of
from all over.
outside the county.
It's a fantastic program, but it pulls from everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, also say, there are a lot of programs that take place. If you have leagues that form, or teams that form and practice at PYC, they're gonna play elsewhere, and they're gonna bring it.
Rachel, did you have any questions or?
Basketball.
I was just thinking that the New York Times had an article today that the aerosol distribution or the transmission has gone up incredibly for this. This is not COVID-19, it's COVID-21. And I think maybe kids will play elsewhere, but I think we have to stand in a way that is the protection of our students and their ability to come into the school to learn. And I regret greatly the potential absence of CYO, and of all of those other programs that bring value to the community. But our primary responsibility is the education of our students, and in-person education is something we clearly have to stand behind. And this is the primary safe way to do it. Having seen how hard it is for kids to keep masks on, and knowing the aerosol issues related to COVID right now, I would shudder to think of what this could mean.
Tricia, any comments?
No, I fully support what Frank is recommending, and I mean, obviously with a heavy heart as well, but with a goal on in-person instruction and safety.
Yeah, I'm with Frank. I mean, it just makes sense. I believe it just makes sense, yes. It's sad, but it should move away on a time frame, so to speak. But you gotta do what you gotta do to maintain, the safety and things that go along with life.
Thank you. Rob?
I think I said
Any
before,
question?
I support what Frank's recommending.
Tim?
This is for indoor only.
Yeah.
Because at least where I've been to activities that are outdoor, not just in Voorheesville, but elsewhere, people are right on top of each other, unmasked, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of reluctance to participate in those kind of activities. I know what you're trying to do is uber safe. I'm just not sure. It feels like we're going to do our small part, but it's not going to be much compared to all the activity that's taking place outside of this building. To what extent it's going to make a big difference, I don't know, but I will support you on this recommendation.
So we can take a vote? Yes, everybody ready? Okay, Rachel? Okay, so all in favor of recommending that at this current time, when we're at high, at least, do you want to make it just for high, and how do you want to?
I'd rather not make blanket statements, so can we just keep high, and then when we go to substantial, reevaluate it?
That's good. So,
I appreciate it, thank you.
okay, so while we're in high transmission, that no outside use of our facilities for any group will occur at this time. Can I have a motion?
Outside use of inside facilities?
Outside use of the inside facilities, inside, yes. Move that,
I'll move it.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
When opposed?
Abstaining.
And, oh, you got that? Yep. That RJ will be abstaining. Okay, so thank you, and I know, it is heartbreaking, and we deeply know this is from, you know,
Yeah,
your
it's-
desire
it's-
for safety and.
It's taken me a long time to get to this recommendation, and it's not one that I do happily, but it still is a recommendation that I feel is in the best interest of our school community.
I respect that, Frank, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Frank. Okay, 4.1 minutes of regular meeting, can I have a motion?
Move it.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So I'll go through each one, but I'm gonna put 5.1 through 5.8 together. We have treasurer's report, personnel items, including a retirement. In April, after 19 years of service for Ms. Dan Della Penta. Thank you for your years of service. We look forward to celebrating that. 5.3 CSE recommendations, bids for produce, 5.4, 5.5, approval revised organizational chart, 5.6, approval of MOU for Albany County COVID test that Mr. McCree spoke about. 5.7, approved resolution of the board goals that we discussed and revised at our last meeting. Thank you, fellow board members, for all the work into that. And that will mean, as long as we pass that tonight, the strategic task force can really get moving. So that's great and exciting news. And then 5.8, contract with advanced therapy. Any questions on any of those items? If not, may I have a motion?
I'll move those.
Okay, second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Rachel. Okay, thank you, everyone. Okay, moving on. Audit Committee Chair, Archie, would you please give us an update?
Sure, thanks Cindy. So earlier this evening, we received our outside auditors report from the Bonadio Group. They gave us their highest level of assurance over our financial statements, and there were no material adjustments required. There were a couple of items of note. There were some changes under GASB 84, and those required the district to move what are called trust and agency, or really club or extracurricular funds, and private purpose trust funds, which are scholarships, into a miscellaneous special revenue fund. So that was completed. I know it took a lot of work by the district to get that done, so thank you, Rob and Jim, for getting that done. In terms of those funds, there was a $167,000 balance in those funds, and revenue exceeded expenses by $5,530, which is good. There was one other issue noted regarding compensated absences that required an adjustment. The issue there is whether these expenses are a current liability, but in our auditor's opinion, that required an adjustment, which was made. Regarding the district's finances, we ended the fiscal year ending June 30th of 2021 in the black by approximately $306,000. The majority of that was a refund which was received relating to the district's participation in a tax consortium called
Health
NEHIT.
consortium, yeah.
Okay, thanks, Jim. And then this fiscal year, our unassigned fund balance came in at under the 4% required under the real property law. So we're at 3.98% of the district's total budget. In the last year, I think we exceeded 7%, but that was due to all of the uncertainty around COVID, and the board was comfortable with that, even though we were exceeding the 4%. For this year, we did come in just under that 4%. And then in terms of the audit committee meeting, we reviewed the school's profit and loss statement for the school lunch fund. And this year we are doing much better. Students are buying those extra things that, as a parent, I wish they wouldn't, but like Frank said, the Rice Krispie treats, the fruit roll-ups, the waters, the
The
coffee bar.
I'm getting hungry.
So the school lunch fund is doing better than last year. And then we also received reports from our claims auditor. There were some exceptions noted. They were discussed with the board, and nothing really to note there. That's it. Thanks, Cindy.
Thank you. Okay. Curriculum Chair, Tim?
So we had a meeting on September 28th, and all the members of the committee were there. And we kind of had this open discussion about to what extent has COVID and the accommodations we've had to initiate affected student learning. And we would have liked to have had some results that were verifiable and such, but the state has not released a lot of their test data, both the Regents test data and the K through 8, or excuse me, 3 through 8 ELA and math. So we were relying on some other data, but it was very useful discussion. We were able to see some comparisons and such. For example, we looked at STAR data, which is assessment data for grades 1 through 8. This is based on an adaptive test, so it's an individual student level. And Frank, if I miss any of this, please let me know.
Yep, you got it.
And Karen was able to give us some comparisons between the end of 2019 school year, and the end of the 21 school year. 20 was an aberration. So we were looking at 19 and 21. And Frank pointed out there were some significant differences. Students were taught in pods. A lot of it was online. Teachers focused in on concentrations of reading, writing, and math. So it was a little more of a, I'll say, back to basics kind of approach. We introduced a new phonics program. So we had smaller class sizes and a more focused curriculum and such. But we also saw that things had not slipped as one might have thought. Big changes had come about, but the kids and the teachers adapted pretty well. There have been some things we talked about related to trying to get back into the swing of things. Kelly Lindrum mentioned that, you know, students were used to these 12 student pods. Now they're back into let's say a 24-person class, and just the way in which you interact with other students and the rules of the road in a regular classroom is something that many students had to become reacquainted with. How do you behave in a setting like that? But from all of this, we did see that, you know, things like the proper use of technology, online learning, smaller class sizes, a focus, kept things moving along, and the drop off that one might have expected just wasn't there. I mean, not on a ground basis. There might have been individual students who have difficulties, may still be having difficulties, but broadly stated, we held our own. I think that's a fair way to say it. We also looked at something I never had heard of, Fountas and Pinnell. Am I correct in calling that? The kindergarten pandemic cohort, if you will. To what extent has there been grade level reading been regressed? And this Fountas and Pinnell is a measurement that checks that off, and it actually looked like they're doing okay. So we're feeling pretty good about that. We did some comparisons for 3 through 8 testing. There were no large differences in the number of students who were tested. That's all we can report on at this point, as the results are not available, nor are the Regents results available at this time. They will be at a later date. We will be discussing on a later date, and I'll report what we learn at that point in time. The end of the year high school course grades, there were some differences from past years. Obviously, some concessions had to be made. We didn't have some of the same accountability assessments and such. But all in all, what we saw was that there was not a bunch of grade inflation. The worry that, well, okay, we're gonna give these kids an easy pass because of all the difficulties they've been through. Don't think that happened. We saw that their teachers were very consistent in assessing student performance from previous years to this end of 2021 school year. So it gave us some hope and some confidence that we're doing a pretty good job here under some pretty extreme circumstances. That's all I had to report. Trish, you were there. Frank, you were there. I don't know if there's anything more you want to join. Okay,
No, I think you said it well.
that's my report.
Thank you. Facilities, Rob Chair.
So guess what? Last month, we met facilities immediately before this meeting.
Oh,
I reported out on both, so you all are gonna get 10 minutes back.
Oh, yay.
How about that?
You're the winner of the night, Rob.
All right.
Thank you,
And
Rob.
that's my update.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second that.
Yeah. All right, policy here, Rachel.
And I'm going to follow that with the fact that our policy meeting is on Wednesday. So RG and Rob, expect something in your inboxes soon. So we'll report on that in November.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Okay, moving on to new business. We have a policy up for vote that was on the first read last meeting, and that would be 7.1, Board of Education Policy 5062, use of service animal. Can I have a motion to move that?
I'll move it.
Move it. I'll second it.
You do have one thing you needed correction. You got a typo. It says in the very last paragraph, or excuse me, the first paragraph, superintendent of schools of their designee. I think it's for their designee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good catch.
Yeah, good.
That's a good eye, that F was.
Jess, you got that?
Doesn't
Jess, okay, thanks, Tim.
Catch it.
Oh, boy, that was good. Okay, all in favor with the change?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Other business, opportunity for the board to be heard. Rachel?
I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, dates to remember. Our next meeting will be Monday, October 8th with I would say all board members just plan on 6 o'clock. We do have,
Not
We do.
October.
November 8th. We plan on 6 o'clock, both for the November and December meeting. December, we have Audit Committee before. Just put it on your calendar. And then this meeting, the month before the November 8th meeting, we will have photos for the website. Our communications person will be here. And also please have 100 words or less on a bio prepared to give to the communication, whatever you want put up on the website, short and sweet. And in an anticipated executive session for personnel. So just plan for your calendars, November and December, 6 o'clock start time. More details to follow. Okay, so with that, may I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll move it.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you for attending our meeting this evening.